Last week I recorded a video analysis for Triathlon Taren, which I'm sure you've seen on YouTube before. And Taren and I in this video, we're discussing that analysis and where his stroke's currently at and how he at around a mid 130 pace for his half, the full distance Ironman, how he can get from there to eventually into the 120s. Now, if you are around the 2-minute mark per 100, then you'll probably find there's a lot in this video for you as well, because that's essentially where Taren was in the past, and he's now down around that 130 pace. So in this video, we talk about some of the drills that will help him. We talk about some of the ways that he's gonna have to probably change his stroke and some of the sensations and the experiences that he'll go through when he's making those changes, because as you know, things can feel very strange, very different when we're doing it. So we have a look at his video and we also compare him to some elite swimmers as well, just to really dial in and see what we want his stroke to eventually look like in the next 3 to 6 months. Now, if you want to see the full analysis, I'll put it at the end of this video. So I'll put the timestamps for the entire video in the description here if you want to skip ahead to any section of it. Now, if you're looking to improve your swimming, then our Effortless Swimming membership, the price is going up at the end of the month. So I'll put a link to that below if you want to get in before the price rises. And there's also an offer for Taren's Team Trainiac, which is also a limited time offer, which I'll put in the description too. So I hope you enjoy this video. Let me know in the comments below what you think and sit back and enjoy. All right, Taren, welcome back to the podcast and thanks for joining me.
Thank you. Thank you for just spending, 20, 30 minutes staring at me in a Speedo again. You're a brave man.
Well, it was actually longer than that because I like to sort of look at videos on a few different days and just make sure I'm catching everything and see if there's anything that I'm missing there. But it's been good just to work with you and help you improve your stroke, and to see someone like yourself improve in such a big way over the last 2 to 3 years is great to watch, because I think there's a lot that people can learn from someone who started almost from scratch to get to a point where you can swim 130. So I think that's pretty impressive, and there's a lot that people can learn from it. And so for you, how's that? What's it been like to go through that progression and to get to where you are now? Is it something that you thought that was never going to be possible, or you knew if you put in the work that you could do it?
I lost hope, to be honest. It's been a long, long road. After, I want to say this is my 11th year in triathlon. I started out like everyone does, really struggling to swim that 25 meters across the pool. And after a couple of years, got a handle on that, but then basically just plateaued for, I would say, 10 years, or up until the 10th year. And it wasn't until, say, a year or two ago when I started working with you and other swim coaches for the workouts that I started making that leap up from just being a capable swimmer where I could actually just go into the water and not be terrified, to actually being a decent swimmer and seeing my times drop. And recently it's been interesting because I thought that, again, I had plateaued at around that kind of 135 per 100 meters. And then just recently in the background, you see the swim spa, getting that in October of 2019. That's been another thing where I've seen another leap up in progression. So it's really interesting to go through these down moments of like, maybe this is as fast as I get for months and years, and then see another leap after working on one thing or having one extra tool. It's been pretty cool.
And what's with the swim spa in the background, how's that helped you? Is it just been more regular feedback that you've been able to get, or is it just being able to swim more often?
It's that regular feedback. So you would have probably remembered my very first swim analysis that you did, and my left arm was basically just completely straight. Like no propulsion, just pressing down in the water. And when I got the swim spa, we put mirrors on the bottom and at the front, and it was 2 strokes before I could see an actual bent, decent catch. Because you've just got that instant proprioceptive feedback, and you're really lacking that in the pool because I didn't come up as a pool swimmer. So having that lack of body awareness in the water, when people would say, well, just get a nice high elbow catch, like, I think I am, but it wasn't happening. Now you see every single second if you're getting a high elbow catch. So it's that instant feedback of being able to see what you need to work on, and then being able to transfer that into the pool, having to go and swim a couple of hard swims to bring that that sensation into normal swimming is where I start seeing the gains.
Mm. Yeah, that's interesting. You know, I also think that this is me personally, like coaching and teaching. I've learned so much doing that, and also, you know, analyzing my own stroke and looking at it and knowing how it feels compared to what I think I'm doing, and then obviously working with a lot of other people. But for yourself as well, like you do a lot of teaching, particularly for those people who are newer to the sport. Has that helped you in any way just change your own stroke and become a better swimmer?
In my case, a little bit. I wouldn't say that I'm more. I really. I want to give you the respect of saying you are a true swim coach. I'm not really a swim coach. I'm a triathlon coach, and swimming just happens to be one of the sports. So I have to get people proficient enough to not freak out when they go in the water. And it's more like don't drown level 1 and don't drown level 2 training that I go through with my athletes. So what we tend to work on with the athletes that come to me is very, very different than actually what you are working on with me, or even what I'm working on now. So it does help a little bit to think through what are the key aspects of it, but we're just working on different things with, say, me and the athletes that I would work with.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I know that you've certainly put in some pretty solid swim blocks. I know you've gone and trained with Jerry Rodriguez, and you've done some, you know, probably a lot more swim training than what you had maybe in the beginning of your triathlon career. How do you find that contributes to your improvement as a swimmer? Like, I think it really obviously goes hand in hand. Just swim more regularly. If you can swim 4 or 5 times a week, that is going to help you so much. Like, there's nothing that can overcome or nothing that can beat doing the work. But obviously technique's a big part of it. But I mean, how was that for you? What percentage of the work was that for you, or the improvement?
I don't know. I've thought about this, and I don't know if I've got a really good answer. And I don't know if you'll like the answer, because I haven't ever found a massive improvement just from swimming more, from swimming 5 times a week instead of 3 times a week. I do find that 3 times a week is basically maintenance. 4 is where I start improving a little bit. More than anything, where I start seeing improvements is in the technique side of it. I feel like I'm so far away from being able to really apply swim fitness because my technique still needs a lot of work. I tend to find that I get the most bang for my buck out of making sure that I continue to work on good technique, even if I'm still just swimming 4 times a week or 5 times a week. And I find that if I swim 3, 4, 5 times a week, whatever it is, if I'm spending too much time on only swim fitness, I'll actually get slower.
Yeah, interesting. And so leading up to this last analysis that we did, what was the focus for you with your technique?
Focus with the technique was getting that catch, just a nice amount of propulsion. What I think you've told me and I've heard before is I tend to have a decent posture, a little bit of sinky legs that I'm working on. But more than anything, one of the biggest things that I lack is a good amount of propulsion. I started with lacking any sort of grip on the water about 18 months ago, and have just gradually got that at least somewhat in place. And it's been working on just getting that right elbow a little bit higher and a little bit better purchase on the water, and the left elbow just getting any sort of high elbow catch, because that's been like a straight arm pull through that is like as bad as you can get, in my opinion, because I've had shoulder issues. I don't get any propulsion. I snake a little bit off center if I don't think about it, and just sort of evening those sides out so that I'm applying equal propulsion with both the right and left arm.
And with that analysis, so you're going to post it on, or you've posted it on your YouTube channel, and I might put it at the very tail end of this video as well for anyone who wants to watch the full thing. And the two main things that we kind of looked at there, because we looked at the things that you're doing well, which can be good to focus on, but the two things where I think there's the opportunity, one is getting a little bit more length and reach in the stroke. And we also talked a bit about that right hand going a little bit deeper through the catch. So we might start with that. Is something that I see pretty regularly is that when someone's going for a high elbow position, sometimes they don't allow themselves to go deep enough with the hand because they're trying to just kind of get it up a little bit too much. And so if you're too cramped and near the surface of the water, it makes it a lot harder to actually get that high elbow position. Now, it's obviously, you don't want to go deep and straight with the arm like your left one originally started with. So there's that fine balance between, getting the right depth and going too deep. But what it looked like in the video, and we might actually pull it up here. I'll go a screen share here. All right, let's pull this up. So, and it wasn't on every stroke, but just on some. So if we look from the side here, and so with this depth of the hand for you, does it, what's it feel like with your right hand in terms of the depth? Like, does it feel like you could go deeper, or have you had a chance to swim since the analysis?
It doesn't. I haven't had a chance to swim since the analysis. But as you mention it, something that I've wondered about is that I feel like my hand slips a little bit. And I think that it's right where you tell me that I pull up a little bit. And I haven't been able to figure it out. I thought it was the angle of my palm. And it seems like it's that I'm slipping up, that I'm lifting up and losing that purchase on the water. And I think it's right at that point where you tell me that. Yeah,
that's interesting. So looking at this frame here, so it looks like, maybe the angle of the hand is off to the side a little bit, and that's where it might feel like it slips, but it's hard to tell exactly if that's the case, but it's certainly that depth. So one of the things that we looked at in that analysis was when you go from this position here to then going through the catch phase, we want the fingers to almost make a quarter of a circle. So it's taking this just nice and smooth angle downwards. And we see here that it starts that way, and then from there to there, it comes up a bit shallower. And that's probably where I reckon you lose that pressure on the hand and forearm through there. And we'll probably get a better shot of it here, actually. So like that, it starts off nicely. That's a good position. And then we just kind of see it come upwards sort of through there. So what I've had to do with a lot of people when I'm working face-to-face with them is just encourage them to go deeper through that part where it feels uncomfortable. Like we talk about this a lot, where it's going to feel like you're probably going too deep, but it'll actually be a stronger position for you. And you'll also keep that pressure on the hand and forearm the whole way through the stroke. So, and you can particularly see it there. Like, I think it just goes a bit too shallow and the fingers end up facing to the side of the pool a bit.
Yeah, right there.
Right there.
Yeah, exactly. I'm pointing inwards instead of fingertips pointing straight down, right?
Yeah, that's it. So on, maybe 2/3 of the strokes, I reckon, just keep it a bit deeper. So that was the first one. And like the left arm, the fingers point down nicely there, and it actually takes a better path through that first part. So I like how that's looking. And then the second thing that we looked at was just maybe getting a little bit more length in the stroke. So that's twofold, with pressing back a little bit further, because we see that the hand's coming out just before the hip. So did you notice that when you were swimming? Because you mentioned that it was something that you saw, but you weren't sure whether you need to go further, or what was that like for you?
I want to say that it was actually in our first analysis, probably 18 months ago, that you had got me to press back a little bit further, because I was probably coming out, if we're looking at my Speedo line, maybe 3-4 inches in front of it, like closer to my chest. So to see that right now, it's not surprising that it's still short, because that's something that I think I've been battling for a long time. I got little short T-Rex arms, so it's hard for me I just naturally want to kind of keep them in closer to my chest almost.
Yeah, gotcha. And so with that part of the stroke, like some people press back too far and they fully straighten the elbow, straighten the arm, and they kind of get stuck a little bit. So you still want a little bit of bend in that part of the stroke. But one of the reasons why it's worthwhile pressing back just past kind of, what would it be? I don't know in terms of inches, but maybe 10, 15 centimeters past the hip there, is that extra bit of pressure at the back will give you a little bit more propulsion, and it helps give you more length with the arm in front. So we've talked a little bit about the serape effect before, but it's essentially that it's the connection from your hips through to your rib cage, so through your torso there, and it's the lengthening of the muscles through there to then be able to snap back and contract, and you can get so much power from that part of the stroke. And I think in order to get more out of that serape effect, so better connection through the hips to the upper body, it will probably involve pressing back a bit further and maybe stretching out and reaching a bit further with the hands in front. So we'll go to this top view here.
I've often wondered about that snap effect, because you talked with me about that as sort of the next evolution of my stroke when we did our last chat 6 or 9 months ago. And always looking at my footage, I don't seem like I've got that snap. So I wonder if I'm at that point that exactly what you're saying, that I can start connecting those, because I know you've got the steps, and the serape effect is towards the end of your swim technique progression steps, right?
Yeah, that's right. It's certainly one of the more challenging ones to develop, or it can take a bit more time. And it's not something that I'd start with someone who's pretty new to the sport. But like, I think that's kind of where you're probably at, is just starting to develop that a bit more. So it would start with pressing back a bit further. And it might also be a matter of trying to reach a bit further with the arm and the shoulder, lengthening through there, and potentially just letting go a little bit. And I think we talked about this in the last analysis, where if you're thinking too much about the stroke and you're trying to control it too much, you don't get as much fluency in it, and sometimes it can just mean it's a bit stiffer. And maybe that's the case here, where we're filming and we're looking to just try and perfect the stroke as much as possible. And the swim spar's at probably a slightly slower speed than what you'd be racing at, so there's probably not as much flow as you'd normally have. But I think that's maybe being able to just let it go and allow yourself to just lengthen it more, and potentially do some strokes there where you might fall out of place or you might overreach, but just kind of getting to that point where you can free yourself up a bit will be a good thing to experiment with when you can get back into it.
Okay, so I've got a question with you on that. Should I be thinking about using that serape effect to almost throw my actually, this is a really good angle as we're talking about this, to throw the angle of my body, to throw the hip turn, the shoulder turn? Like, am I lacking some turn and mobility because I'm not throwing the arms and I'm a little bit too stiff? Like, am I swimming flat?
Yeah, I think so. So, like, particularly for a lot of people, they prefer to be longer on one side than the other. So if there's a side that you prefer to breathe to, so let's say you prefer to breathe to your left-hand side, then your right arm, that side should probably reach and be a little bit longer. And maybe rotate a bit more as well. Like, you can see there, the rotation looks to be about, might be the low 30s degrees there at its furthest point. You could go a bit further. You can bring it up to 40, 45 if you want. But yeah, I reckon there is certainly room to just rotate more through the upper body and maybe a bit more through the hips. It's probably a bit more important through the upper body than anything, because the hip rotation, which I think we get from the side here, that's fine. Like, it wouldn't need to be any more than that. But I certainly think through the shoulders at times, there's room to rotate more, but probably more through the part once you've entered. And talking about throwing it, we'll get this front view here. So at times, I'll see it on this one. At times, I reckon you can actually come in a little bit. So that left hand is, you can bring it in 5 to 10 centimeters. So sometimes, one of the things that we've worked on is you don't want that crossover happening. Mm-hmm. And so it's easy to just go, I don't want to cross over. I'm just going to make sure it stays out wide. But sometimes that can just limit you to with your reach. So if you allowed yourself to actually bring just the entire arm in a little bit, you don't obviously want to cross the hand over, but you can actually bring that arm in a little bit more. You might get that shoulder a little bit closer to the side of the face through this reaching phase with that left arm, and just get narrower in the water, just tighten things up a little bit, because that will be a big contributing factor to swimming faster, is just in this sort of position. If you can just get, even if it's like, it could be 15% narrower there in terms of the entire width of the body there.
Oh, yeah.
And if you're doing that every single stroke, like, there's certainly some seconds per 100 to be found, I reckon.
So let me ask you this. I hear from some coaches that are really big proponents of water polo style swimming, which is very wide, which is very flat. It's not that long, narrow stroke. What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's different strokes for different kinds of people. And I think like with that wider stroke, it's certainly it can certainly be a good stroke, and finishing shorter kind of at the hip and not pressing all the way back will allow you to get your stroke rate up a little bit more. But I think for you in particular, it's going to help you just to get that little bit of extra length there and be a little bit narrower. So for some people I think it's worth it, but it's an individual thing. And so looking here, you obviously wouldn't want to go any shorter, you probably wouldn't want to go any flatter. So I reckon there is room to find more speed just by making these changes.
Would that be a counterintuitive thing for me to think about? Because, like, not to say that that's what I've been working on, but is one of the things that would make that not a great method or visualization for me, because I am shorter, I'm stubbier, I don't have, like you mentioned Jerry Rodriguez, he can almost scratch his knee standing up. He's got such long arms, whereas my dad jokes that I can barely reach my wallet when we've got to pay for the check.
Yeah. Well, it's something that I like when you can get back in the water. I would just I'd play around with it and see what feels comfortable. See how your times change based on trying to lengthen out a little bit more. And the good thing about obviously being in the swim spa is you might do, I don't know, say 50 strokes at where you're currently at, and then 50 strokes where you're trying to go 10% longer and narrower. And you might do like 5 or 6 rounds of 50 strokes where the last one is just longer than as long as you possibly can. And just find the sort of optimum for you there. And once you're in a normal pool, you can get a sense of what that speed is like. So that's the way I'd sort of approach it, but know that it's probably going to feel like you're too long in the beginning because it's not going to feel comfortable, and you will probably get a lot of fatigue under your like sort of through your lats, I reckon, but particularly through the shoulders, because it's going to be quite a different stroke than what you're used to, and you'll be using your triceps a bit more as well, so you might fatigue pretty quickly early on.
Well, that's good, right? I tend to find that my arms fatigue, but my understanding is that that's not good because that's not your big muscles.
Yeah, so whereabouts do you feel it in your... I'm just going to stop that share. Where do you normally feel it?
I feel it in front deltoids and coming down almost into like the outer bicep.
Yeah, right. Interesting.
A little bit in forearms. Like I tend not to get those big muscles activated no matter how much I try. Yeah,
gotcha. I think I certainly reckon that's from not reaching out enough. And in terms of how could you change it, I'll pull it up here because I think I've got it ready to go. And this is drill that you'll know. So just 616 drill. I think this is a really good one for you to do, because then you can like put fins on and a snorkel if you like, but just there as you're kicking in that position, bring that shoulder right up to the side of your face, try and get really narrow and long and make sure that opposite shoulder's out of the water. And then the hand that's kind of resting by the hip, make sure that arm is almost straight and that the hand is kind of almost on your upper thigh as you go through it. And like it's really sort of, it might feel like trivial things to focus on in that drill, but it's really it's small changes that you're looking to make to it. So it's not like you need to do any sort of brand new drills or do 10 different drills or anything like that. I'd keep it really simple and just maybe start with a drill like this where you can make that change.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I've actually been doing a lot of side kicking to feel that arm out a little bit straighter, but for whatever reason, as I'm looking at this, for whatever reason, I just haven't incorporated into this drill, and this is one that I actually use on our team.
Yeah, nice. And with this drill, like you usually end up rotating more through your shoulders and your hips than you would when you swim, but I think that's okay. Sometimes it's good to to go a bit further than you would when you swim here, because it's going to get you comfortable being a bit more on your side.
How much would you say for somebody that, let's just say if your shoulders are, I don't know, 20 inches wide, how far apart at its widest would your arms be? 20 inches? Or would they be slightly narrower than the width of your body?
Yep. So if you're looking front on, yeah, it'd be slightly narrower. So I'll pull up another video here, because I think there's, and I guess I'm sort of guilty of this as well, is, we talk about enter in line with your shoulders and reach forwards, and you want to avoid that crossover. And I think the crossover can be a big focus because it's the most obvious one for most people. Like, you can look at someone swimming straight away and it's like they're crossing over. They've got to stop crossing over.
Yeah. It's an easy one.
It's a really easy one to spot. So I think there can be too much of a bias to like keep it out really wide or here, but really we want to keep it in sort of here a lot tighter, a lot closer to the center. So no, we don't want to cross it, but you want to keep it in close to the center. So I'll show you here with this is Dan Smith here. Hopefully this one's opened up. Yeah. All right. So if we have a look from the top view.
Oh, very narrow. It's almost right on his center line. Yeah,
that's it. Like it's not crossing the center, or like he enters there in line with the shoulder, but you can see that position. It's like he's so narrow through his body there, but it's right up along the center. So that might be where you need to feel like you're going to, if you are currently trying to keep it out sort of wider than that.
Yeah. Yeah, and there was that one video that you included in my analysis, which people can look at the end of this video, that you showed me how narrow, I think it was your swimming actually, that it looks like a really, really narrow channel.
Yeah, so that was the guy Peter Kerr, who he's retired now, but he was a professional triathlete here in Australia for a long time. And I thought it'd be good to include some footage of him because he's keeping it really sort of, he has probably one of the longer strokes that I've seen in terms of like, he really reaches out and stretches far. So that's probably more on the further down the scale of how far you need to reach. But I think it was good just to sort of make that comparison there. And even like, I might pull it up here. So I'll show you Annabelle Luxford, which I don't know if I've showed you footage of her before, but...
No, I haven't actually ever seen swim footage of her.
So I've got some footage here, which I'll screen share. Now, it's because with Annabelle, like she's obviously a great swimmer. She's right up there. But there's like, in terms of like a high elbow catch and stuff, like she's not, she doesn't really have an obvious high elbow catch, but she's got a great rating. She's really good at that power diamond position. And she just like, she gets pretty narrow through the stroke. So I'll play it through here. Actually, that's her with paddles. We'll have a look from above anyway. And she's even got a bit of a crossover happening here, but you can see, again, just kind of where she's at in terms of that shoulder and reaching forwards. So I reckon if you're able to get to a position that, a bit like that, like, boy, you're going to be really narrow. You're going to be getting, I reckon, another 10 to 15% more distance out of each stroke. And that's obviously going to help you just with that Serape effect, so that better connection through the whole body. And you'll find that you will be using those bigger, stronger muscles through the shoulders once you do that. And I think maybe I haven't got, here we go, the underwater footage. Like, so you can see how that shoulder's kind of up near the side of the face a bit. She's really reaching out with it. Now here she's got her fingers below her wrist. Now that elbow kind of looks dropped there, which it sort of isn't even there. Like it's not your classic high elbow catch. And even Josh Amberger, which we've looked at footage of, he's in a somewhat similar position through there. But when we have a look from the front, which I don't know if I've got here, and that one's probably a little bit better, but it just goes to show that you don't need to get to this really extreme high elbow catch. We just want to get sort of those other things right. And if you have a look at her, if you trace her fingers here, just see how it continually sort of moves downwards in that quarter circle shape that she's got there.
Down.
And same through there as well.
Yeah, through there.
And it can start to come up once you get to about there, because I think we looked at it last time. It's like a half a light bulb or half a light globe. If we were to trace the fingers, that sort of shape that the fingers would trace if we're looking side on.
It's gradual though. It's gradual almost with her shoulder coming up. It's not her elbow coming up from the looks of it.
From the side view?
Yeah, if you're looking at the side view, her hand drifting up, it seems to be in line with her body rotation, her shoulder just getting higher in the water, as opposed to like me, where it seems like my elbow is actually pulling it up. Yeah,
very true. And you can see it there. And so you can see how much surface area she's got in her forearm and hand through that, particularly there and through that back part. Like she's just getting so much drive from that good position. So, things don't need to be perfect, but if you get that length and that good connection through the body, like that's a big one, because we know with your catch that it's already quite, that it's improved a lot, and there's some really good aspects to it, especially when we look from the front view. Like you're getting nice diamond shape, and we're starting to get a pretty good catch on both sides. So I think we still want to work on it, but there's a good portion of that is there. And so making these small changes to the other aspects of it, I reckon, is where you may want to spend your time working on.
Next stop, 120s per 100.
Let's do it.
Yeah, I just need some pools to open up.
Yeah, that's right. Is that looking likely?
It was supposed to look likely about 2 weeks ago, and they're still apparently working on a plan.
Yeah, gotta love it. Yeah, well, I think, looking forward to seeing, just to seeing how you go once you can get back into it, because, I love working with people and just, seeing what they can get down to and helping them do it, because it's a learned skill, so you can absolutely do it, but it certainly takes a lot of focus, and knowing the right things to work on as you know. But I think, this to me would be, I can see you getting consistently under that 130 pace, and whatever it might be, like 120s, mid 120s, somewhere around there, with the right work. It's certainly doable.
Man, it's nothing 10 years of swimming can't fix, hey?
Yeah, that's right.
Easy.
Yeah, easy.
Yeah. Well, thanks. Yeah, this is always really interesting to go through, because every time we've gone through this, there's been something that, as you said, it's small. It's not a complete overhaul, and walking away with one thing that is the most beneficial thing to work on, it simplifies it from holy smokes, I've got 7 things to work on, and how do I improve them all at one time? I've always found that to be impossible, but having this one thing to focus on is actually something that I can execute, and still might take 3 to 6 months, but it seems to be working a lot better.
Oh, absolutely. And I know when I've been working on my own stuff, it's like I might have 2 things, maybe 3 things to think about, and I can only think about one. And I'm like, oh, that's right, I need to do this as well. And that's someone who's, I'm living, breathing it, doing it all the time. So yeah, one thing at a time is the way to do it. So man, I'm looking forward to you being able to get back in the water.
Yeah, me too. Question about the setup for a swim spa. I mean, for me, or if anyone else has a swim spa that they have access to, for this, is there a setup of the mirrors that you'd recommend? Like a certain thing that I should be looking at? Like, should mirrors be on the side or in front of me? What should I be focusing on if I can actually see it? Yeah,
I think for you, it would be probably on the floor would be the best one, because then you can probably see whether you're too flat and not reaching enough. So then you can really get a sense of that part of the stroke. I'm just trying to, because I've only used a swim spa twice, so I haven't got too much experience with with the setup. What have you found to work well for you with where you've had the mirrors?
What I've got is one directly underneath me and then one at a 45 degree in front. But I've been working on that catch on the bent elbow on both sides. So that one in front is what's been critical. But I've wondered if I should play around with them for different things, because I'm kind of feeling like, all right, I've got the bent elbow figured out. Where could I place it to focus on other things?
Yeah, gotcha. If you could, because I'm thinking if you've got a mirror on the side, it's probably going to be difficult to see it when you're swimming. I might be wrong there, but if you're like off to the side, I don't know, it might impact you a little bit. But it would be good just to try and see the depth of that right hand through the catch, when it comes up. But it might even just be a matter of like getting the GoPro in there on the side and just sort of checking that, because it can be hard to see to the naked eye as well, because it happens pretty quickly. So it might just be a matter of take 10 seconds of GoPro footage and see where it's at as well when you think you're doing it right.
Okay. Yeah, I'll take a look at that.
Yeah, cool. Well, no, thank you for sending me another video, and it's really good working with you. And I just really enjoy watching this. So it's 120. So I can't wait for that. Let's make it happen.
Oh, likewise. Thanks for working with me. It's like I say, it's fun to go away and feel hopeful that I have something to work on. And
for anyone who doesn't know where to find your stuff, if they've never been on YouTube before or anything like that, do you want to just share your where people can find you?
Triathlon Taren. We put out a video every Thursday and Sunday, mostly for newer triathletes in their first, say, 0 to 5 years, kind of wrapping their head around the sport. That's who we tend to focus on.
Hey Tara, thanks for sending in this latest video here. So let's have a look at the stroke and see what you're doing well and see where there's some opportunity to swim faster. And keeping in mind that when you're swimming in the swim spa, there's a couple things here. Now, we know that you're swimming at around 150 pace here. So it's obviously not the 130 pace that you'd be used to when you're racing. So we're not going to look at stroke rate. And the other thing as well is that sometimes in the swim spa compared to, say, the pool, the stroke can change a little bit. We sometimes see the hips and the legs dropping a little bit in the swim spa. And the other thing is too, that through the reach phase and the catch phase, that can be impacted a little bit because you've got the water coming towards you more than you would when you're normally swimming. So you've got the water being pushed towards you. So it can change that slightly. So keeping that in mind as we go through it. So in terms of what you're doing well here, head position and alignment looks really good. Like the head stays very still, looking slightly forward, which is nice, and the top of your head remains above the water here, which is really good. And where you're breathing too, that's great. You're getting that nice split vision, that Popeye type of breathing happening, and that doesn't need to be changed at all. That's terrific. And I know something that you've worked on with posture. The kick as well is really good. I know you've worked on having that kick out the back for balance and stability through the rest of the body. So your upwards and downwards kicks are great. So what we want to try and do there when we're looking side on is make sure that there's pressure on the downwards beat, so that downwards beat there, and the upwards movement there, keeping the leg somewhat straight through that up kick, which you're doing nicely, and the heels are breaking the surface as well. So that's really come along in the last 12 to 18 months, which is great to see. So I really like how those things are looking. And if we look at, all right, where's some opportunity to find some extra speed? Well, if we look here, I think with body position, as we mentioned earlier, the swim spa will often change that. And looking at other videos, look, your body position is good, and that doesn't need to be changed. So I just put that down to being in the spa as opposed to the pool there. So I'm not overly concerned with the hips and legs dropping a little bit. That's pretty common in the swim spa. Now, where I reckon the first opportunity is actually through the right arm catch. So you can see here that right hand enters and the fingers are drifting up slightly there. Again, that might just be a result of being in the spa compared to the pool. But if when you return to the pool that is still happening, then we obviously want to just make sure that hand gets down to shoulder depth, like this left one here. Get down to that sort of position instead, just to take the brakes off, so to speak. But the other thing you'll see through here that I'd recommend just adjusting slightly is as we go through the right hand catch, I think it comes a little bit shallow through part of it. So here, all right, we're in a good position. We've got the fingers just below the wrist below the elbow. Now as you move through here, okay, setting up this catch nicely, moving through that well. No need to change that at all. And then from here to here, this is a subtle thing, but you'll see that the hand actually goes shallower from here through to here. So it sort of moves in this position, and then it goes like that. What you'll see side on with elite swimmers is it moves in this semicircle for that first part of the stroke. So it moves in the depth of it moves in that semicircle sort of shape. So if you're going through and it goes good, and then it comes up shallow and then to there, often that can be from either trying to get that high elbow position or just not allowing yourself to go deep enough through here and keep that pressure on the water. So we want to avoid the hand coming a little bit shallower through this midsection through there. One, because you will be a bit stronger with the hand slightly deeper there, and it will help you keep the fingertips pointing downwards instead of maybe off to the side there. But it's primarily a strength thing and keeping pressure on the hand and forearm as you go through there. The left hand seems to do it pretty nicely if we look at the depth of it. So we're starting here, again, nice position, moving through, fingertips pointing down, good. And that tends to follow a better path, as you can see. Oops, see through here. Yeah, that's better. That's more of that semicircle sort of shape there on the left-hand side. Now it's a little bit picky, like it's not it's not going to give you the biggest improvement of all these things that we mentioned, but it is worth mentioning there. So if we do look at the front view here, let's just see what that looks like. Okay, good. So here, setting up, and just right through there, you can see that's where it tends to go shallower. So I would even aim to be keep the hand a little bit wider. So here, this looks good, setting up nicely. And then from there, it may even be coming in towards the center a little bit too early. So I'd keep sort of moving through here instead of looking to have that in sweep happen early on there. So you want that in sweep to start to happen around about there is where you want it to start to happen. But I reckon that's just happened a little bit too soon. And that can somewhat be seen just by the angle of the hand. So it's 90 of the arm, 96 degrees, 100 to 120 is where we want to keep it. And you'll see that the fingertips are pointing off to the side, just a bit more than what's ideal. So I'd be looking at, can you keep it around there? So just maybe make it feel somewhat deep on the right hand side through that end part of the catch. Now the second thing that I'd be looking to do, and this is where there's a big opportunity, is I'd be looking to press back a little bit further with both hands and potentially get a little bit more length and reach with the arms out in front through that extension phase of the stroke. Now let's look at the exit of the hand to begin with. So you'll see on some of these strokes here, it looks like it's coming out a little bit early. So it's coming out before the hip, and then even on some it comes out a little bit earlier. Now again, that might be a result of swimming in the swim spa, but if it is coming out that early in the pool, that's something that we'd certainly want to adjust. Now the reason for that is when you exit the water at your hip or where you are there, it's only 10 to 15 centimeters less than where you ideally want to be, and it's not like you get a lot of power or a huge amount of propulsion from that last part. But the thing is that extra little bit, that last part of the stroke, a little bit more propulsion there leads to a little bit more length with that arm there. And that little bit of sort of length will help you just set up the catch a little bit better. So that there works with that part of the stroke there. So that's why I'd be looking to just press back slightly further. And I think it's the same on both sides, whereas it just comes out a touch short on both. Now, the thing that will sort of combine with is this here. So if we look from the front, at times, I reckon you could actually bring the arm in towards the center a little bit more. So through this extension phase of the stroke, the hand, just from this angle at least, it looks like the hand and the arm may be out a little bit too wide. So as we're going through here, we want to try and just keep this somewhat in line with the shoulder to make you a bit more streamlined to reduce the drag. And so it looks like just early on, you may just be out a little bit too wide. And so that oncoming water is going to be hitting this part of the arm. And we want to try and just get in a fairly streamlined position as we go through that. So that little extra distance out the back with that arm, and maybe trying to just reach out a bit more with the shoulder and the arm here will help you do that. And it might be a matter of, look, maybe there's been a slight overcorrection with the, that train track position, getting the hands in line with the shoulders. At least that's kind of what it looks like from this angle. It doesn't look this wide when we look from above. So the alignment generally looks pretty good from here as we go through that. But again, I reckon there's maybe a little bit of room to just sort of bring it in and make it slightly more streamlined. But that would be probably the number one thing I'd be focusing on, is pressing back a bit further, maybe reaching out a little bit more with the arms while they're out in front. And we know that we don't want to do it to full extension, 100% of how far you can go, but just a little bit more is going to allow you then to get a little bit more sort of length through the torso, through the trunk here, through the arm, through the shoulders. And then it's that lengthening of those muscles that will then allow you to contract those muscles and get this nice sort of snapback effect and really get some good power for very little effort by increasing the length of each stroke there. So that would be the main one I'd be looking to do. Now, in terms of, is there anything else to focus on? They're really the main ones that I'll be looking to do. We sort of mentioned the catch there a little bit, but just a slight change with that right arm, and otherwise just continuing to work on to work on the catch. But I think this, you're setting it up pretty nicely, particularly through this left arm, and I reckon that right arm will just help by going that little bit deeper through there. And it might be a little bit fatiguing in the beginning, but it is after 3 or 4 weeks, it'll feel certainly a lot better there. But this is great. Strokes come a long way, and I know that you've worked on all those foundational things really well. So now we're just looking to make those sort of 2-3% adjustments to the stroke to continue to bring it down.